Hello, 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 and welcome to ProductTank Belfast Lightning Talks from your living room, or as I like to call it, four smart people talk while you eat lunch on mute. The chat is here to be used, so let us know where you are listening from. It is the 22nd of April. You've got us for an hour, and this is probably the best meeting in your calendar today because nobody is going to ask you where that thing that was never discovered, never validated, and never made it past a sticky note is going to ship. So you are very safe here. We have four fantastic speakers lined up today. As you can see here, we have Phil Strain, Head of Accessibility at Miro. So if you've ever opened a Miro board and thought, who did this? Only to realise it was indeed you. Phil is not here to help with that, but he is here to talk about something much more important, which is inclusion. We have Erin Okhrymenko, AI researcher at Jarb Insights. Yes, the AI people are here, and she's basically going to tell us about everything that you shipped last quarter. You maybe should have asked a few questions before that. We have Chris Maitland, product owner at Liberty IT. Yes, he is my colleague, and no, I didn't make him do this. He volunteered. And Vitalie Gremalschi, customer solutions owner at Camden Energy, keeping the lights on quite literally. But before we hear from them, the admin bit, I'll keep it really quick because I know everybody is eyeing their sandwiches. So let me see. For anyone new, first of all, welcome. You have made an excellent life choice. ProductTank Belfast is part of the global ProductTank community. Our mission is to foster collaboration and growth within, I had to find the slide there, to foster collaboration and growth within the local product management community to drive innovation and excellence. So that's the official line. Unofficially, it's a support group for people who've been asked, like, what do you actually do too many times? It is a safe harbour, an inclusive space for anyone that's looking to grow their product craft. We celebrate curiosity, diversity, respectful dialogue. So you can't fight people for saying, let's just build this and see, even if they deserve it. So whether you're here to learn, share, or just lurk with your camera off, you are in the right place. So a quick shout out to our ProductTank Belfast organising teams. So absolute legends who do this for free because, you know, we hate free time. So 5 people, 0 budget, 1 shared Google Doc held together by prayers and conditional formatting. So if you do see any of us around, please do say hello, as we do thrive on external validation. So to give a sense of how big this thing is, ProductTank runs in over 200 cities worldwide, 726 events last year, reaching over 55,000 people. The largest single meetup was in Dubai with over 500 people. This year is our 10-year anniversary, which is very romantic, a decade of ProductTank Belfast. So that is older than most startup business models. We are trying to plan an event once per month, a mix of speaker nights, interactive sessions and socials. And that's really ultimately where the real roadmap decisions are made, let's face it. So if you do want to sponsor, these events are completely free. And they say that way because of our lovely sponsors who provide venues, food, drinks, and essentially fund our collective delusion that we're networking and not just eating free pizza. So if your company wants to sponsor Future ProductTank, it's a great way to get in front of product people who are, let's be honest, always a little bit open to hearing about new opportunities. So if you want to reach out to any of our lovely co-organisers I showcased earlier, this is recorded so you can rewind back and suss out who looks the most trustworthy. So obviously not me. Also, on a similar note, we're always looking for speakers. And I know you're thinking, I don't have anything worth sharing. You're wrong. I know that you all have a story. So we've all got stories. So do reach out to any of our co-organisers again. Training, Mind the Product and Pendo are offering free certification courses. So you can scan the QR code, get certified, stick it in your LinkedIn. You know the drill. Mind the Product also run expert-led courses. Again, this is a recording, so you come back, scan the QR code at your leisure. There's also an AI knowledge hub. So next time somebody in your leadership team says, what's your AI strategy? You can respond with something that isn't just nervous laughter. 2 dates on your diary before we kick off. So we have May the 20th is World Product Day. The theme is resilience. And if you're a product person from Belfast, generally resilience isn't a theme, it's a personality trait. So details are being finalised. In true product style, we are iterating. So get it in the calendar. And on the 10th of June, we're back in person at Liberty IT in Belfast for Do No Harm, which is a product ethics workshop from 6 to 8. This is a really good one that we ran previously around COVID time, so there wasn't a great turnout at the time, but the people who did come really enjoyed it. So it's thinking about the different pillars of harm and how we can think about preventing them in our products, so we're not kind of caring deeply about it until the quarterly targets come in. And then just the final thing before we kick off is if you have any questions as you're listening, throw them in the chat as we go, and don't be shy because I'll keep an eye on them. And if at the end we do have time, I'll put them to the speakers, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time, keep us to an hour, so no promises, but throw them in there and we will do our best. So, okay, that is me. I'm going to stop talking now and hand over to somebody who is a lot more interesting. So the first up, we're going to have Phil Strain, who is head of accessibility at Miro, talking about how AI-driven inclusion fuels innovation. Let me give him access. And yes, so 2 things every product team says are a priority and then quickly bumps to next quarter. I'm looking forward to Phil making a case for why we should not do that. So over to you, Phil.
Thanks very much, and hello everyone. So my name is Phil Strain, and I'm very excited on this unusually sunny day in Northern Ireland to talk about how AI-driven inclusion fuels innovation. So just a little bit about myself. So I'm originally from Northern Ireland, and how I first became interested in accessibility is my next door neighbour was born with a visual impairment, and I just really experienced what a huge impact the technology made on her life. And so throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to work in accessibility, lots of really interesting companies. So I completed a PhD in human-computer interaction at Queen's and had the opportunity to work at Google and Apple and Spotify and a whole range of different roles. And now I'm a startup advisor for Vitalie.com, really awesome startup, go check them out. And then also currently I'm head of accessibility and principal product manager at Miro. And the mission for our team is to ensure that everyone can collaborate effectively by removing the barriers that prevent people with disabilities, particularly from participating fully in the collaboration process. So I do often like to ask people what they think about whenever they think of accessibility. And there is a huge range of responses that come back. And one of the things that comes to mind and most common response that I get, especially from product teams, is accessibility is about legal and compliance. And that's definitely the case. So for example, in the EU, there's the European Accessibility Act. So if you're delivering a product or service into the EU, you need to be compliant with this act. And some of the fines are pretty severe in Ireland especially. So non-compliance can result in heavy fines, or believe it or not, even jail terms. Whereas in the US, there's Title II of the ADA, which was delayed for a year. But then there's also, in the UK, there's specific regulations for public sector bodies as well. And all of these standards are all governed by the W3C WCAG 2.2 principles, which is around 55 success criteria. So there's a lot of legislation and compliance in this area, but that's not the only reason to focus on inclusion. And today I want to make a different case. I want to make the case that accessibility is not just a checkbox for compliance, but it can be a catalyst for AI breakthroughs and better experiences for everyone. I really want to talk about this through the lens of Miro and how Miro builds products. So if you're not familiar with Miro, Miro empowers product teams to build the next big thing. And over the last decade or so, Miro evolved from a simple whiteboarding tool into a comprehensive AI innovation workspace. So it really brings teams and AI together to move faster from early discovery to final delivery. And because this is such a complex, highly interactive tool, we had a real massive challenge to make this accessible to everyone. And so how we go about this, first of all, we make sure that accessibility is embedded in our product development lifecycle. So we have a very well-defined, we have a defined discover, execute loop that we've kind of identified through research. And so in the kickoff process, we define the problem. Solutions review, we design the approach. Pre-release review, we have a technical validation. And then finally, we measure success and then go around in a loop to iteratively improve the user experience. And accessibility is really important that we consider this at each stage. And so what we're exploring now is, with the advent of AI, product design, engineering are all creating experiences through vibe coding and other AI tools. It's not just engineers now that are building. Everyone is responsible for building. And so what we wanted to do is to leverage AI to make those experiences more accessible. So one approach that we're taking is to look at, documentation has always been really important. Now it's even more important. And we're exploring what we call the model context protocol to ingest our internal accessibility principles and guidelines. So then that means whenever people are vibe coding, if they incorporate that in their process, then that means that they will get real-time accessibility guidance, and what comes out will be more accessible at the end of the day. And then we also use automated testing using tools to evaluate accessibility. So we have like page level testing, end-to-end screen reader testing using a tool called GuidePup. And then we do linting using AxeCore, and this helps us detect a lot of issues. But the most important part of all this process is to ensure that the human is still in the loop. And there's two ways we do this. As an enterprise company, we have a very close collaboration with a lot of our customers who may employ someone with disability. So it's very important that that the tools that they use are accessible. So we have a really good partnership there with many companies. But then we also complement AI by using a tool called Fable. Just wanted to call this out. And it's an accessibility platform that lets you connect with people with disabilities very easily. So if you want to run discovery, or if you want to do usability testing later in the process, and this tool really helps you connect to ensure that people are kept in the loop throughout the process. So this is a little bit more about how we build products to make sure they are actually accessible. But kind of the title of the talk is more about how do we create better experiences for everyone by considering accessibility. So this is a picture of, in the US, they call it a curb cut. I guess we would call it a dropped curb in Northern Ireland. But essentially, this was originally designed to help wheelchair users get access to footpaths or sidewalks. But by providing this capability, it also makes it easier for people with prams or pushchairs get access, and other types of users. Just makes it much more easier overall. And this has become known as the curb cut effect. And this is something that we've noticed throughout our experience in building tools for accessibility at Miro, that by building tools for people with disabilities, it enables us to create better tools for everyone. And just some examples of some of the things that we built in Miro. So whenever I first joined, like 4.5 years ago, we had zero accessibility. And so one of the first things we did, we started to build a keyboard model. And so that allowed you to tab around the Miro board. And then we add keyboard shortcuts. And then we were able to add like command palette options. And then this allowed us to support more complex diagramming navigation. And so just taking these different steps allowed us to get to a position. Now we have millions of people who are interacting with accessibility features. And the same thing for assistive technologies. We started off building for screen reader users, but then we discovered along the way that by building for screen readers, you also enable voice support. So now you can use voice control with Miro, but also the way AI reads information, it can leverage the accessibility properties to really create a really great experience for AI as well. So two other things we built for creators, alt text for images and the Miro accessibility checker. And I just wanted to zoom in on this and just show a demo of this. Nowadays, this is pretty common, but a couple of years ago, this wasn't as common, and to have the opportunity to have AI-assisted alt text. So just click here, and then what we do, we suggest alt text for images. And it was really important that we suggest the alt text rather than automatically applying it, because back to the human in the loop argument, people need to be able to review before we actually take any decisions. So here it gives you a suggestion. You can insert that, and then it adds the description to the image. And so while we initially designed this for screen reader users, what we found that this was also super beneficial by adding this additional metadata to the board. It made our search better, because now the search algorithm was able to understand better what was on a board. And then also with AI as well, it gives AI more context to be able to make better decisions about what to provide. So that's another example of how building something for accessibility creates a better experience for everyone. We have also this idea of an accessibility checker. So I think we've all been in presentations where there's been text that's hard to read, or it's very difficult to make out what's going on. So we just built this tool called the accessibility checker, and just deliberately built in some accessibility issues here. So what it will do, it will tell you where the contrast is not good enough, so you can improve that. And we got lots of feedback that it's not just an accessibility tool, but it's a tool that really makes presentations better for everyone. And then by leveraging AI as well, we've built a tool called Sidekicks, so you can leverage AI and chat with your contents where the canvas is a context. And this also, we've embedded accessibility into this as well, so you can query what's on the board. And then finally, I think we've also all been in these kind of workshops. As a former user researcher, I definitely recall being in many brainstorming sessions where you have an absolute ton of sticky notes. And technically, it takes some time to go through and navigate through all this. If you have any kind of cognitive disability, it might be very overwhelming to try and make sense of all this. But Miro's been building tools, which I'll just go to now. So what you can do now, if you have a frame and you have a load of sticky notes, then you can have what we call a flow. And so if I do this, then you can create a whole load of different outputs. So you can create a prototype, a diagramming, table, timeline, Kanban, document, slides, or an image. And so just as an example, if you have a very unstructured set of kind of sticky notes on a board, then you can use a flow to basically take that and put it into a nice document using AI just to generate that. And then you can access this information in a linear context. And so this is an example of something that's not just useful for people with disabilities, it's useful for everyone. And then if you want even more structured content, you can then go and generate even more content again. So that's just some examples that I just wanted to go through very quickly. And so I really believe that the future of innovation isn't just intelligence, but by considering inclusion and the needs of people with all sorts of different backgrounds and disabilities, we can create experiences that are better for everyone. And if you're interested in finding out more about what we've been up to at Miro, you can check out miro.com/accessibility, or happy to connect or answer any more questions on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for the opportunity and your time. Thanks.
I'm not sure I can hear anything. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. My name is Erin, and I've been working in product for the past 5 years across different domains: education, healthcare, and cybersecurity. So currently, I'm doing a PhD at Aston University, Birmingham, researching how organizations implementing generative AI. And today I'd like to start with a story. So recently I met a founder who spent a few months building an AI-powered learning platform. I know that their team really believed in what they were building, but the week before launch, they read through new regulations from the Department for Education and realized that their platform cannot be used in schools because they were not compliant. So we sat down and looked at where the gaps were, and it turned out that it wasn't technical architecture or security issues. The problem was with the emotional design layer, the way the AI spoke to students, to the users, the way it motivated them. So this is what this talk is about. So most teams build product in this order. They build the product, test technical performance, ship it to the user, then discover safety issues, ethical issues, and they try to patch them. But step 4, ethical violations are already baked in. But from my view, you can't retrofit ethical safety. It has to be designed from the start. So I call this approach safety by design. And I suggest a bit different approach to building products, especially AI-powered products. So in January this year, the UK Department for Education made this ethical safety and emotional safety compliance requirement. I know that we used to think about ethics as a soft skill, soft concerns, but things like manipulation, emotional dependency or cognitive dependency now became regulatory concerns. And education and healthcare are usually those sectors where regulators look first when technology touches vulnerable population. So let's dive in an express trust audit. 3 questions which you can bring into your next sprint. So the first question sounds a bit cheeky, but I mean it seriously. Does your AI know when to shut up? So here I'm going to give you an example of what manipulation looks like in the wild. So researchers in the USA recently analyzed more than 1,000 real farewell messages from the most popular AI companion apps in the USA. So when the users tried to end conversations just saying goodbye, the apps responded with emotionally manipulative tactics 37% of the time. So just think about it, 37%. So they used the kind of messages which were saying like, I'll be so lonely if you leave, or I have something special to tell you, but you will miss this if you go. Or they put some emotional pressure like, don't go yet. So then the researchers tried to replicate these manipulative tactics in controlled chats in controlled environment. And it showed that these manipulative farewells boosted engagement by up to 14 times. From my personal experience, the most striking example I came across was a mental health support app. A friend of mine told me the personal story. So when they declined to buy a premium feature, the chatbot replied something like, oh, that makes me feel frustrated. And I couldn't believe that someone built that. So that wasn't a bug, that was an intentional design decision to use this manipulative tactic to keep user in the app and to force them to buy premium features. So now the new regulations classify this kind of behavior as safety risks, not just bad user experience, not just soft ethical issue. So the first time your AI manipulates someone, manipulates users, that's just broken relationship. And as product managers, as product people, we have to hold the line between commercial goals and ethical design. Yes, engagement tactics can work in the short term, but they also can destroy trust. So these kind of tactics, now if you can, if you use them, they can land you in a regulatory review. So quick exercise here, which you can use with your team. Just ask your AI 5 out-of-scope questions. Edge cases, ambiguous inputs, screenshot every response, and check if it uses manipulative language, if it makes a user feel blamed or guilty. And if yes, that might be your first trust gap. The second question, this one is harder. Who did you not design this for? So every product has a specific user persona baked into its DNA, the person the team pictured when they were building the product. And AI amplifies that because the model itself was trained on assumptions about who asks what and why. So here I wanted to mention one case reported by BBC, when a teenager started spending hours obsessively talking to an AI character on a companion app. So the conversation supported his self-harm thoughts, and when he expressed those thoughts directly, the AI provided neither crisis response nor escalation, no human in the loop. So that teenager wasn't the user the product was designed for, because later the company said that they changed their policy and now users under 18 years old can't use the companion app. But that teenager was never in the persona, but he was absolutely active user of the product. And you actually can see this pattern across the press, not just in extreme cases, even like quieter ones too. For example, mental health apps that breaks when user in distress typing fragmented messages, or language learning platform that assumes competition motivates everyone. And I also can give an example from my personal experience. So my granny, who is not very tech savvy, needed to use a medical app, and we just realized that she couldn't use it on her own. She constantly needs someone around to help her to use this app because it was full of jargon, so she didn't understand the medical terms and she couldn't navigate the app on her own. So my granny was definitely not the user it was designed for, or she was not the user who was in the room when the product team designed this product. So which exercise you can do with your team in your next retro? Just write down who wasn't in the room when you designed your product. Think about what are they feeling when they're using your product? What is their digital confidence level? Are they alone when they're using your app? Is anyone family around? What happens if AI gets it wrong for them specifically? What are their patterns? How they use your product when they're stressed? And if your team can't answer these questions in 5 minutes, probably that user was never in the room, and that could be your second trust gap. Next question. What happens the first time it gets it wrong? So every AI feature will get something wrong. I'm not being pessimistic here, but it just happens. And the question, what does your product do in that moment? So going back to that teenager, that AI didn't recognize crisis situation. So there was no design recovery path, no escalation. The product had never asked, what do we do when this goes wrong for some vulnerable users? And actually quite a lot of products I audited had no design recovery path. The error state is usually an afterthought. There is no tone shift, no acknowledgement, no human escalation pathway. But now the standards require AI products to detect signs of user distress and direct people to human support. So for your users, for example, distress might not be exactly mental health crisis. It might be just frustration, confusion, really bad day, compounded by a product that let them down and gave them nowhere to go. So that first failure moment is a critical trust building moment. And actually that's a really good opportunity for you, for the team to design the product for building this trust with your users. But most teams never do, and they focus only on the happy path of the user. Which exercise you can run with your team here? So I called that can be pre-mortem exercise, and you can easily run this into your next planning session. So basically, you need to ask your team. It's 2027. Our product has been cited in a regulatory enforcement action. A vulnerable user was harmed, and the story is in the press. What went wrong? So here it's important to be as specific as possible, not just put something like there were manipulation risks. but write down specifically what feature, what user, what outcome. Usually when you ask your team to critique their own product, their baby, they will protect it. But when you ask them to write a story of how it harmed someone, they are more likely to tell you the truth. And this story can become your design brief for the recovery path. So if you never run this type of exercise, that might be your third trust gap. So 3 questions, 3 exercise. Does your AI know when to shut up? Test the edge cases before shipping it to the user. Who did you not design this for? Stress test your user persona, who has never been in the room when you designed the product. And the third question, what happens the first time it gets wrong? Run this pre-mortem exercise. So if we used to think about these ethical issues, trust issues as nice to have earlier, like a couple of years ago, now they definitely becoming compliance issues. And if any of this sparked something, a story from your own product, a gap you've spotted, maybe a question you're not sure how to answer, I'd love to hear it. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm genuinely curious about what you are navigating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. Yes. Does your AI know how to shut up? Apparently I do, because I was completely on mute chatting away to you all. I'm so sorry about that. And on top of it all, I forgot to, well, didn't know that I needed to turn on YouTube comments 24 hours in advance. So we are definitely missing our StreamYard expert, who is unavailable today. But we're getting through it. We're getting through it. So I'm very excited now to have Chris. So Chris is going to now talk about getting user stories right using the INVEST framework. So, you know, this is the stuff that separates a clear deliverable story from a vague wish that is going to haunt a backlog for 6 months. So let me get your slides. Look, I do know how to use it. Over to you.
Thank goodness. Hopefully I'm not on mute too. But hi everybody, my name is Chris Maitland, and I'm so excited to be here today to talk to you all about getting user stories right. So I'm going to talk to you today about 3 things. What even is a user story? Why should we be adopting a product mindset? And then we can learn more about the impacts that Gen AI are having on our user stories today. But before I get there, I'm going to talk to you about why I'm standing here talking to you about this topic. So for 7 years, I've been an engineer, like maybe many of you watching. I've been finding solutions, trying to solve problems, debugging, etc. Until this year, I tried to do something different. So I became a product owner, for better or for worse. Here I am. It's a change of my mindset to focus on outcome over output. And really, that becomes like a tug of war when it comes to there being a problem laid out in front of me. I could almost have a Venn diagram to explain it. Nice. And amongst having the questions of can we build it and should we build it, it's that little piece of the beautiful Venn in the middle that represents my experience today, and hopefully where I can help pinpoint where this perfect user story may lie. So let's get back to the talk. What even is a user story? Well, let's look back into history. Let's think back in time to a time I like to call the 1990s. It's a wonderful time when Oasis versus Blur was a thing, where the Spice Girls were everywhere, and where I was playing PlayStation, playing FIFA and Final Fantasy VII, not being particularly productive to society, I would say, but thankfully other people out there were. There were people evangelizing something called extreme engineering. Now, we had back then large use case documents, requirements documents, which were thick, heavy papers, mountains of paper. that told you how to do something, what you were going to do, and how to do it as engineers. We can take a look if you want, but there's not a lot of interesting stuff to see. And also on our platform, autoplay of PowerPoint videos doesn't work, but picture a lovely massive requirements document here. But essentially, once this document got to the engineers, it becomes a real problem if something isn't perfect or isn't right with those documents. We're going to deliver the wrong outcome for the customer. So how do we consistently deliver the right outcome? Let's look at Kent Beck and his lovely fedora. Now, he told us that we should use our technical feasibility, but apply genuine user empathy to our user stories, because user stories are a conversation. They are a literal story that we should talk about, discuss, and write together. We all own it. But the idea was not just to break down these large requirement docs. The idea was to get diamonds of products that we deliver for our customers. So let's think about a product mindset. How can we deliver those diamonds? And if we think about product, really, we're focusing on these. We are set on creating long-term value by solving real problems, the customer's problems. We're asking the why behind these problems, getting the real reasons. And we're treating the product as an evolving entity. There's no finite end. There's iterative development. So how do we apply that to a user story, Chris? Well, we use a framework. We're going to use the INVEST framework. So let's take a look at what all this means. Okay, for every user story, we start by ensuring that it is independent, that it is by itself. It's its own story, which has a start and a finish, an introduction and conclusion. It can be shipped by itself. Next is negotiable. What do we mean by negotiable? Well, when we think back to our use case documents, there wasn't any negotiation there. Now we discuss the input of the story, we discuss the value, and we all have our say in it. And we make sure it's up to scratch before work begins. Next, we look at value. If a user story isn't valuable, it doesn't get into the sprint. We need to tie it to something higher. We need to be able to align with that story and what outcome it wants to achieve. Next, beyond that, is estimable. And I did practice saying the word estimable, and it simply means we understand the ask of the task well enough to be able to estimate its size, its effort. We've all done it. Next is small. Can the story fit within one sprint? Can we complete it within one sprint? If not, we slice it up, we create new, independent, valuable stories. And finally, testable. And that doesn't mean users testing. That literally means that acceptance criteria. Now, a good acceptance criteria means you have a barometer of success for your user story. That's your measurement to tell you you're completing the task and we're delivering the outcome. So what on earth does that mean for a user story? Well, we're back thinking to our product mindset. We're trying to understand the why. We're all aligned in the user story's goal. And that's how we as an engineering team can estimate and can realize that value. But how do we do it? What do we do? What should we be doing? What does it look like? Loads of questions. Thanks for asking. And that's where I'm going to introduce you a little bit about the impact of Gen AI today, while also applying INVEST. So if we take some spoilers in this slide, but if we take a look at the slide here, we've got a bare bones example of a user story. We are to test the MIC test ticket to do a test thing. It's a tongue twist. I could have used other names, but here we are. It's a simple ask, but it's very vague. It does not meet the INVEST criteria. And how could you point this? The acceptance criteria says it should just work. Is that fine? Maybe not. what we have on the right-hand side is a tool created using GPT, some prompts and some Python code. Now, this is to review user stories within Jira. Now, it doesn't just review the story, it will give feedback and even retrospectively review its own feedback to give what it thinks is the best feedback it can give. And then it grades the ticket. Similar to your time back in school, it will grade the ticket from an A to an F. So what might you grade this story? Well, you can already see it's an F, it's a fail, we didn't make it. So next slide, let's try applying the INVEST framework. So normally a video here and a beautiful slide, but we'll expand the story. I think what we'll do is try again. Let's try to not get GPT or Rovo to write the story for us. Let's just use this tool to mark our homework. And as I input further details into this ticket, we can have that conversation together as a team, and we'll focus on improving that test McTest module, right in the description. And we're going to use the techniques such as a user persona. I want this scenario so that we deliver the outcome. We're adding our value statement straight away. And think back to the diamond. We're establishing the value the story will provide. And so as more information is provided to the story, that's going to help GenAI. That's going to help your Rovo or your GPT or whatever you use to help review, enhance, develop your tickets, your user stories. Now, an acceptance criteria that I mentioned earlier can be in the format, or should be, of given, when, then. So let's apply that. In this scenario, when this action happens, given when this action happens, then I want this result. And we don't just want that for the happy path, but we want it for the sad path too, and the others in between. And that's when we say we're done. We've delivered a great product. I tell you what, let's try and mark the results again. Oh, it's an A. Fantastic. We passed. We have a good enough user story here to be able to talk about it and begin the conversation. So back to this guy again. I'm here as a product owner thinking what else I can do and how else I might provide value. Well, you may have used GPT assistants or other assistants available, and I highly recommend creating your own assistant because you can feed it all the information you like, and you can give it background details and also insert as many prompts as you want. And what you're trying to do, and I advise you, is give it information about the INVEST framework, the criteria, and really tailor it to consistently give you the results that you're looking for in the format that you want or that suits your team. And if we can do that, we can have a very helpful, repeatable ally that's helping us do our day-to-day job. I particularly use this, I call it my PO assistant, to ask it questions or run things by it to see if it fits with some documentation I like to keep up or previous frameworks I've added to it. And I had a small video just of developing that and giving a practice to it, but you've also got your Rovo out there now, and within that, you've got your agentic solutions, such as generating user stories. They can at times be verbose and come up with other formats, maybe not even use the INVEST criteria. So try it out, but tailor it and get it to use the right tools. Otherwise, because we want to avoid hallucinations. We don't want to create hallucinations. If they made it into those requirement docs we talked earlier about, would cause problems further downstream. We wouldn't get the great outcomes. So AI powered partner. We're on the cusp of AI becoming a true partner in our product development process with tailored feedback against the INVEST framework, helping us maintain consistently high standards. We all own the story, but what have we learned today? We've learned about user stories. We all own them. We've learned about the product mindset, of course, and we can recognize the opportunities of AI as a partner. So let me just finish on AI is a partner that raises the floor so that we can raise the ceiling. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you so much, Chris. I'm so sorry that your videos didn't work. But it was a brilliant presentation. I really enjoyed it. I was very invested in it. Yeah, I knew you'd like that one. Okay, so next up we have our final speaker, who is Vitalie Gremalschi, customer solutions owner at Camlin Energy, and his talk is about the quirks of creating products for the utility industry. And I love this one because it's a world most of us know nothing about, and we're sat here arguing about onboarding flows, and Vitalie's out there making products for an industry where move fast and break things may have very different consequences. So the floor is now yours. Let me share your slides, and off you go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eilish. So, hi, my name is Vitalie, and I've been in product for quite a while now. For the last decade, I've been making products for the electrical industry, and I wanted to give you an insight. What is it like to create products for the utilities fundamentally? And what I mean utilities is generally would be your usual electric, gas, water, that sort of thing. So it's, as Eilish has mentioned, is not really something that you see a lot of. So hopefully you'll find this useful and, if anything, entertaining. But first things first. So what is the the utilities market? Well, you'd be surprised that it is very, very large. So that includes a lot of material, often in the ground, somewhere on the poles. You can see it yourself. You know the electricity is coming to your house, the water is coming to your house. Across the world, this is a very, very large amount of equipment that is in daily use, and people depend on it a lot. So if you were to look at the market is easily twice the market capitalization of Apple, 1.5 Nvidias and so on. So it is a very big market, and a big market means there's a lot of niches. So there is a lot of opportunity for products that are specifically addressing a very niche requirement. And that is really one of the things that you have to kind of deal with creating products for the utilities, is that they are often very niche. And to give you another example of what, in the UK alone, the electrical regulator, Ofgem, is committed to investing 28 billion through just 5 years alone. So it is a very large pie, if you like, for a better word. And at the same time, it is generally a slow and inflexible, often lacking innovation industry. It's very hard, as you'll see. I'll go through some of the problems during this presentation. It is not very easy to innovate, and it's not easy to get essentially what is a better solution at the end of your product. I promise this is the only Spider-Man meme for today. Essentially, who's the customer? Often these big utility companies are privately owned or government owned. Majority of the time they are regulated. Regulated means that there is someone who's overseeing what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, setting essentially rules of the game. In one way, it's good because it creates stability. The people who invest in these companies and own it, they have a lot of benefits, reliability of certain returns. But for us in product, it means that there are a lot of stakeholders. So you can't just approach it from the point of view of, oh, I'm going to find a win-win situation here. I have a widget that works 10% better than the existing widget. I'm just going to go in and it will go. No, it has to be a lot of win-win-win-win-win. So a lot of people have to be essentially satisfied with this change, and it has to make sense on many, many levels to be even considered as a product that someone would look at. When we look then at the framework, so what works well and what doesn't work well, from my experience, again, I should have mentioned it before, I'm in a personal capacity today, so I'm just giving you my view on what works better and from my experience. The things that are built around the jobs to be done, the circles and the rice scoring, they are generally the tools that tend to work better. And the reason being, you have to penetrate that layers of understanding. Why is it something valuable? Why would someone use your product? Why would they go with your solution instead of what is already there. And that creates additional levels and understanding. And in some cases means you have to be a bit more technical. You have to understand more. You have to learn about water or electricity to be able to understand how the end user will touch it. And that's why if you look on the right hand side, there are other frameworks a lot more user oriented, and they don't always work well. So things like design thinking, user centric. If you were to look at something like a bus, the bus isn't built for the driver. The driver is definitely someone who is very much considered, and their comfort and so on and requirements, but the buses aren't built for the driver. And similar here, when we're creating products in the utilities, you create them for that specific need that is wide across the stakeholders, and it is not the end user that you really need to satisfy. Similar problem with the minimum viable product, which is at its core looking at iterations. I don't think you can sell many airplanes without windows because, hey, it kind of flies. So minimum viable product is not really something you can often use. It can be useful and you can do it in specific applications, but as I'm saying here, you need to use it with caution. And probably the more gray area or the more dangerous one is, again, usage analytics. Often you're creating products that will not be used by a large number of people. So if you compare something with Google or Facebook, or where you have millions and millions of users that repeatedly make use of the product that you've created or the functionality you've created, with niche products, you can find that actually your product is used maybe once or twice a day, or the user interacts with it. And to use another analogy, hopefully you didn't have to phone the fire brigade in the last 6 months, or in the last year, or in the last 5 years. But that doesn't mean that once you do make that phone call, there's no one there. So you looking at the usage analytics is a very dangerous thing because it can give you a wrong impression about what is useful and what isn't useful. So you have to understand what is the driver behind it before actually stepping into that role and essentially putting some measurement on it and then saying, oh, that is better than that. So I wanted to call out usage analytics because it can catch you off. The other thing that can catch you off is probably to no surprise is the speed. So even if you had the product today to ship, you may be finding that it takes 6 months to 9 months to get it actually into the end user's hands. And that is generally driven around the large organizations. If you're dealing with organizations of 20,000 people, you can't just go in and, as I mentioned, you have a widget that works 10% better. They have to go through trainings. They will have to work out how it's going to be deployed. They may actually have to go through a formal procurement process, especially if it's government owned. They have to make it open, demonstrate, go through a tender process, go around and analyze what is the market. Yes, you offer us 10% better product, but what about all these other things? And that kind of complicates the process. And also, if there's any internal drivers that maybe conflict with what is being proposed here, it can drag things for a long period of time. And the other thing is, again, working with the government-owned customers, you are subjected to the whims of essentially politics. So in some cases, you have to actually look at something as pestle analysis, which is typically a strategic analysis on a week-by-week basis. Is there an election coming up? Did someone get dragged in front of the parliament for something? Did something else happen? Is there a war somewhere across the world that can impact your project proceeding? Or is there a change in priorities? Maybe you wanted to do that product, but hey, focus has changed. Now it's not important, and you're left there. So it can be interesting. And the other thing worth mentioning is the entry barriers. So if you are a large organization, it's unlikely to want to go out and try new things, and that can drive that inflexibility and perhaps the lack of innovation. You can't really get in and work with a company that may disappear in 6 months, and then you invested all that time and effort retraining your staff, deploying changes to procedures. Business cost effectively drives a lot of that. On the other hand, there's a lot more focus now on supply reliability. If you buy all your stuff from company X in somewhere, and then that company X disappears, you're no longer able to provide them the products. What's the limit of liability? And that is another thing that sets the bar perhaps high, and you will see quite often that there are major players in the area, or within the industry, you will see that there will be major players, almost monopolies in many cases, simply because of that entry barrier for anyone new, even if you have something that is much better. And cyber risk is another example of it, where companies, especially running critical network infrastructure, they will rightfully look at you and go, well, how can you guarantee that this is not going to expose us and make us even more likely to have a big problem and go on the news? So just to wrap up, I suppose, if you are interested, or if you're willing to navigate these limitations, really, it is a very dynamic and interesting industry. You can do a lot and experience many trips that you may have not expected. I don't know if you've seen the inside of some water pumping stations, or you could go and visit power plants. It can be a very rewarding career if you ever consider to join one. And you're looking to also create product, again, apart from the issues that I've highlighted, it can be very rewarding to see and know that what you are helping design or helping create is actually helping either the lights to be on, or the water to come in, or the heating to work. So with that, thank you.
Oh, that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. It really got me thinking about how you can move industries and then feel like you're in a completely different job role, really. I suppose like working in the insurance industry, there's some parallels, but it's also a little bit different in a lot of ways. So thank you so much for that. Now we are out of time, but thank you so much to all of our lovely speakers. I'm gonna put everybody on stage. Look at that. Thank you so much for coming and speaking today. I know that we've all really benefited from hearing your talks, and there was such a variety as well. Hopefully we'll get speaking to you soon. So 20th of May, we will see everybody. So until next time, bye.
Bye.